Okay, and now we're testing, and it looks like so from my end, it looks like we're streaming. So we're gonna go to actual Facebook and see if something's happening, and refresh that, see if it's showing up.
Yeah, does it split our screen or how does that
No,
part
it's
work?
working. I see it right now.
Oh, cool.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, it splits our screen. We're just seeing the Zoom screen
Okay.
up and down. So I'll tell you in a second when I think it's on. I believe it might be on. I'm seeing the thing that says waiting for stream, but I started the stream. There we go. I think we're good. So welcome. Hello, everyone. I'm Frank Damato. Jess? Wanna...
Hello.
Yeah, so here we are. Um, what we're about today. Uh, Jess and I we'll take a little minute to introduce ourselves and what we're doing here. Why are we here? Um, and uh, and then from there we're going to do a meditation. And I think I'm going to do a kind of meditation that I often do in authentic communication groups. Yeah, I think my plan is for you and I just to have a kind of authentic communication session between the two of us. It's which is actually kind of exciting for me because I have I don't think I have yet to do an authentic communications official like, hey, we're going to do a session one on one. Like obviously I use those skills or that type of presence in all my connections, so that happens. I would say some of my relationships or my primary relationship is like one big authentic communication session. But it's interesting to kind of set this up as a session to do it that way. So let's do introductions, just brief introductions so people can know who we are, and then we'll get into it. Um, Sound good?
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Frank Damato. If you might know me, you might not. I do an IFS practitioner. That's the most namey name thing I use. But I do healing work, emotional trauma healing work. It's basically spiritual work. I help people. I think I help myself primarily. It's really all just comes from my own just never-ending curiosity about my own consciousness and the nature of existence and the nature of wanting to be really fully alive. And what goes into that, and how could I be more alive, more in harmony with life and other people in the universe. So that's why I come to this work, and I guess in the last 4 or 5 years I've really focused on this type of what I call authentic communication, which is a practice of speaking from your heart, from your gut, about what's true here in the moment in relationship to what's happening. So that's me. That's why I'm here. And I love live video. I find it pretty exciting. So it's a flow practice and a spiritual practice in and of itself to kind of like be grounded and be very present in the moment, be aware of what I'm feeling. So it's like a whole other level of self-awareness and communication. So that's all I'm going to say about me for now.
All right. So I'm Jessica Singleton, and I've been working with Frank, I guess, for maybe 5 years, something like that, and learning about IFS from him, internal family systems, and learning about authentic communication. And similar to Frank, I could pretty much explore my consciousness and my relationship to self, which affects my relationship to everything else, pretty much endlessly. It's always something, there's always something to work on. And I appreciate all that I've learned from Frank around that. And I was so excited when he asked me to sort of be a guinea pig today. And he's like, we both have been checking in. Should we talk about this? And we're like, no, we should just do this. Like, we know how to do this. Like, let's just go for it. So that's been really fun. As far as what I kind of do in the world, I've worked I was a yoga teacher for a long time. I'm an artist. I love gardening. I've worked with women's groups, and I really like to explore communication in other ways, like how to do healthy conflict and things like that. So I'm kind of all over the place, really. But it's all connected in my brain. So
Yeah,
I'll leave it at that for now.
it's all connected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, it would be good to try to say a little bit of like what authentic communication is as we're getting into it, just a little bit of it, which is it is the practice of for in this context of speaking to what's present in the moment in relationship to another person. And so imagine there's a level of where we can be talking at a content level, right? Like, oh, I'm telling Jessica about my day or something, but there's an emotional level that's happening underneath that content level. You know, what is the kind of subtext of what's happening? And we're always kind of dropping into like, what is that emotional level that's happening? So as I'm listening to you, I might say, ooh, as I heard you doing your introductions, Jessica, I was starting to feel excited, or I was starting to have ideas pop off, and so it'll make more sense probably as we see it, and it might be good to. I'll probably explain it as we're doing it, like as
Mm-hmm.
you know, kind of little teaching point moments come up. Um, so we'll just start from there. So normally when I run the groups, the main practice of this is in a group format with 5 or 6 people, and the way we start, I start with a meditation. And that meditation will speak a little bit to what kind of energies, what parts of ourselves in internal family systems language, what energies or parts of ourselves are present in the context of our lives that we're bringing in. Who is the me that's just sat down at this chair right now, and kind of sharing a little bit of that, like what I'm bringing into this moment. And then a little exploration in, well, what comes up, what's alive for me in this moment, in this relationship, in the context of A, being on live video, B, talking with you, Jessica, who I have a deep relationship with for 5 years, right? And what's coming up for me around that. And then we together kind of just explore the material of what's in your consciousness and what's in mine and how we're relating to each other moment to moment. So that's what we're going to do.
Cool.
Okay,
I'm
so
excited now.
cool. Um, I'm excited too, and I'm, immediately noticing, as I'm even stepping into becoming to be aware of my own consciousness. Like one is I'm keeping a connection with you, Jess, which is what I would normally be doing in authentic communication. Like we're talking, I'm conscious of you, but there's an extra person here in the room, which is, for me, represented in my consciousness as the camera, but in actuality is the world, and that world of people, whoever's watching right now, but then also transcends time because that might be a person watching this video later on YouTube or something. So there is a kind of mysterious third in the room, which is different than normally, which is very exciting. But then I'm also having a part thinking about, make sure you talk to them, like, hi, welcome, So it's another relationship that's in the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm kind of really curious to explore that with you as we get into the practice. What comes up for you around that? But let's just dive in because this is already feeling fun. So, and if you are watching at home or wherever you are, as long as you're not driving, you can take a moment. We're just going to begin the practice of bringing our awareness inside. And by inside, I just mean to our own internal experience. So this is a good opportunity if it feels good to you, to close your eyes. That might help. And we're all going to just begin to shift our awareness to our inner experience. And we can start really simply just by noticing our breath. We're not trying to change our breath or slow it down. We're not really trying to do anything but just notice it. Just notice its own natural rhythm right here. And there's different places you might meet your breath. You could notice it as the air coming through your nose or mouth. Or you could notice it as the sensation of your chest or abdomen expanding and contracting with each breath. And so as we kind of begin in this practice, bringing some awareness, you will notice, it's very human and natural, that thoughts, different parts of ourselves are going to be active, thinking about things, wondering, questioning. And that's totally fine. And you don't have to stop thinking. You don't have to quiet your mind. Just the best thing is just leave it alone. Just let it do its own thing. And we're just together we're gonna focus on our senses a little bit. Our senses of being here in the moment. And the purpose of that is just to heighten our sense of awareness. So we could start by noticing your sense of hearing. Maybe you can notice some sounds in the background of where you are. You might notice the sound of my voice kind of coming in and out. Or the sound of my dog barking. And also notice that as you hear certain sounds, like the sound of my voice or the sound of the dog barking, that there is often a reaction that kind of comes after. Like if there's a sound, you might see your mind labeling the sound, thinking about the sound. And just notice that. That's all part of the experience of sound. But then we can really even get curious about the pure experience of the sound. Almost as if you were hearing these sounds for the first time. We're going to shift out of the sense of sound in a moment. But as we shift, you can even be curious about what it's like to shift. What is that experience like as we move awareness from our sense of hearing the sounds, sound of my voice, sounds in your room, and now shifting to being aware of our bodies. And just notice how your sense of your body can now come more in the foreground. And you can start just by kind of being aware of your body as a whole, right? Like just seeing if you could just feel into, not really think about, but just feel the sense of the outline of your body. How do you know from your senses where your body ends? And just take a moment to feel that. Just feeling into your sense of your boundary, where you end and the outside world begins. And just maybe noticing the sensation of air on your skin. Or the sensation of your feet on the floor or your back against a chair. And you might notice that just from the simple act of bringing awareness to your senses in the moment, without any effort, just kind of softening into awareness of the moment, your body can start to relax a little bit. Without trying, it just kind of drops in a little bit. And just noticing that. And you might also notice that as we kind of open up to our senses, our sense of awareness gets a little bit almost kind of brighter and even a little bit more expansive. And you might notice that there's a kind of sense of space inside you. And into that space arises phenomenon like an airplane. I heard that sound. Just noticing that, and then noticing how it passes away, and then bringing awareness back to the sense of space that sounds and thoughts move into and then pass away from. And just noticing that. So as we kind of just get a little bit familiar with this sense of space, kind of ground in it, like, this is our actual sense of being. It may not feel familiar because we're always so busy and doing, but this state of spacious awareness is more of our natural selves. And just feel into that. And so as we get familiar with this space, it's a really nice thing because we actually we can do things here very mildly. We can invite energy in and then just notice what happens. So what we're going to do is invite in to this spacious awareness the energies, the meanings, the thoughts, concerns that are happening in the context of our lives. In this, what I might call the near past, right? The last day or so. What is present for you? What is your system working on, concerned about? excited about. Maybe that's about your work, about your relationships. Um, Maybe it's about your feelings about what's happening in the world, the pandemic, politics, whatever it is, whatever is concerning you. Seeing what it's like to invite that in. While remaining aware of the space that holds those thoughts and feelings. And this is like a little bit of a dance here, because you'll notice, especially with the stronger your feelings are, if you're really triggered by something, something's really concerning, when you invite that in, there's a tendency for it to take over your consciousness. It's almost like all the air goes out of the room for a moment. The body tightens up. There's a voice that has no interest in quote unquote meditation. I've got things to take care of. And just notice how quickly that can happen. And then just notice what it's like to just kind of shift your awareness to the space in which those thoughts and feelings arise into. The space that can hold all of that. And just take some time to listen from that spaciousness, to whatever degree you feel it, to just listen and become maybe interested and aware of the you that came into this space today. And just take a breath with it. Nothing to do about it, nothing to fix. Just for this time period, just for the time we're doing this, there's nothing to do or fix about any of that. Just to be with it. And so just breathe with it. So another kind of defining characteristic of this space that we're in together is that it's kind of malleable. We can move things around in it. And so just see what it's like to kind of allow all of that energy of the context of who came into this room, all the things in your near past that are in your mind, in your mental state, your feelings, thoughts. Just allow that to kind of be on one side of the space. Left, right, doesn't matter. Just let it be on one side. And notice the other side, there's a whole bunch of space there. And into that space, we're going to invite in the energies, thoughts, feelings about being here right now. So that means for me, the energies for me around, speaking into this meditation, around being here with Jessica, and around being with an unknown present and future audience. What comes up for me around that right now? And for you, it's the same. It's just from a different vantage, right? Like, what is it like for you to be here in this moment? What are you curious about? What are you interested in? What might it mean to you to be here? Do you have any hopes about what you'll get out of engaging with this, either by watching or engaging with the meditation or through the dialogue? And again, kind of practicing that dance of allowing those thoughts and feelings to come forward. You kind of are them, you blend with them, you become that thought, that consciousness, and then just kind of dance into like softening back and hearing it from almost from the outside. Just being aware of those intentions and feelings and concerns. And again, I always ask this question because it's so good. It's just, and what if there was nothing to do except to just be aware of it, just to be aware and present? What if that was all we had to do? So, in a minute, we're all going to kind of reorient into this relational, kind of social field. We do that by opening our eyes. We do that in our own time, right, as feels right to you. But a little bit contrary to the sense of like, oh, meditation. We just did a meditation. Now the meditation's over, right? We're going to kind of break that mold a little bit. Right? We're really going to think of this as a continued meditation. It's a meditation that includes relating. It's a meditation that includes speaking. We're keeping the same kind of awareness of the moment-to-moment experience. It's very habitual to like, oh, we meditated. Now it's quote-unquote be normal. Right, but what if we just drop those concepts a little bit and just kind of saw this as a heightened state of awareness? Or, and it's actually a more natural state of awareness that we're kind of just dropping into. So then what we normally do is, in the group, this would be the moment where we would check in. And we check in whatever came up for us in that meditation, the parts that are coming into the room, the parts that are present in the context of the here and now. Jess, how do you feel? Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first in the check-in?
I can check in. I'm feeling like I got something. So I had an interesting, as I often do, an interesting visual during the meditation, where as I entered into the space and the awareness of senses, I sort of felt a part that was kind of very present. That was like, it was like the equivalent of like holding like an armful of books, heavy books. And these books were sort of like, I had this thought and there's this thing, and I don't want to, and it was like resisting the spaciousness. And then after I sort of turned my attention away from it and got back to the sound or whatever we were tuning into. And when I came back to this part, it's like, it was suddenly, it was in this, like, it's like this giant black void that feels really good to me. That's my spacious place. And it was in one sort of corner, if there's such a thing as a corner of a void. And it was leaning down on its elbows, like in a soft sort of like legs out. And it was watching these balloons just float far, far away. And each of the books had just turned into a balloon and just sort of, and as you described the spaciousness, and I felt that part of me lean back, and it was like I could feel all this tension release from my body. And a couple times I could go back to that, and the balloons kept fading. And sometimes, sometimes this part of me looking up into the void would sort of not so much see, but hear the planes go across, because I live near an airport, and I don't think about this, but you notice the planes, I guess you guys could hear them. And so anyway, that was kind of the main thing, was the idea that part of me was a vigilant thinking part, was like, I don't want to go into the void. I don't want to go into the spaciousness. I'm going to forget something important. And it was like, it's, you do your thing, man. Like, if you need to hold on to these books, that's okay. But the next thing I know, it's just like, wow, this is really nice. So I'd say that was maybe the biggest thing about the meditation for me, which is pretty cool because I can, and I may get there again at some point today. Like I can get really heady, and thinking and keeping track of thoughts, and how much that sort of pulls me out of that spaciousness, or can at times.
Yeah. It's very. I have a strong urge to respond to what you're saying in the moment, um, but I also have a strong urge to just kind of speak a little bit to my
Mm-hmm.
experience in the meditation, leading the meditation. I'll choose the latter.
Okay.
That feels right to me for this moment. I definitely will go into that response. Um, but yeah, it's interesting, always interesting for me doing the meditations because I don't. I kind of know vaguely what I have a general sense that I'm going to focus on the moment and what's coming up, but I pretty much wherever my attention goes, that's what I speak to. So I don't ever know where it's going to go exactly. Um, and so it's always like, oh, that's where we're going. Oh, we're going to, move from sound to the body, or, like, oh, that's what's happening now. And actually sometimes there's less, I'm, today I was quite aware there was a little bit of a shift in me because I was aware of the audience, and that brought a little flavor. It wasn't very thinky, but it just brought up an energy of just being a little bit more descriptive or a little bit more something. There was just a little, and I just noticed that, like, a little bit more walking through it. Whereas I might have made some leaps if it was just me and you, or if I was in the group doing this. Um, and actually, those slowing down points felt really good, being a little bit more, I don't know, kind of detailed about the nature of the space, or I guess I would say a little bit more of a teaching part was forward than often is. And that felt really good. It felt a little new and good, but it also um, didn't allow me to have as much space to have my own stuff come up. Like
Right.
those spaces were smaller. But what I did get in the meditation, particularly in the part of like, what is the meaning for me being here? What came really forward was you, and it was just very clear, like, oh, I want to get to know Jessica more, and not in a content way, like, oh, tell me more about your child, nothing like that, but in an experiential way. It was very clear, very like, oh, I want to experience this space with you and see how you react and respond in this moment. And I'm going to feel you so much differently or know you so much differently from that. And that was just really exciting. It was just like, oh, that um, that's cool. That's very exciting. So yeah, that was the clearest thing that came up. And it's funny because that wasn't what I was thinking as I was coming into this. I don't know I'm not sure what I was thinking coming into it, except this sounds like fun. I know I enjoy talking with you. I know I enjoy doing communication, authentic communication with you. I know I enjoy live streaming. Let's put all those together, and just see what happens. So that was kind of before, but coming in, um, there was, but that came very clear in the meditation. And the only other thing I think I'll say was, I guess I was a little surprised that what came up for me in the meditation was even just naming what people are holding around the pandemic. And I guess the reason why and what's going on socially and politically and just whatever people are holding around that is because I typically have such strong parts that are very protective of the space, my internal space. And they tend to try to keep a lot of that stuff at bay so it doesn't come out a lot. And so it was just really interesting. As soon as I was open to this, who I don't know who's watching or where they are, but there was just this immediate awareness of the context of the now for everyone. and what people might be holding. So that surprised me a little bit and felt good. Didn't feel forced or avoided. It just felt natural. So overall, I am like super excited. I'm very excited right now. That's how I feel. And how do I, I can, my little teaching part is like, and I notice an emotion, right? Excitement. And then one of the first things I do once I cognitively name that emotion is bring my awareness to my body. Like, what does it feel like in my body to have that emotion? And right now, my attention goes right to my stomach area, my kind of like mid solar plexus, like down here. It feels like there's a little ball with sparks flying off of it. It's just like, and that energy wants to come right up to here and through the speaking, as you can hear in my voice. It's excited, and so there's a kind of wanting to balance that. Like, I'm really glad for the excitement, but there's also like, oh, let's balance that. Like, I don't want to get like, I want to kind of stay aware, keep an awareness with that excitement. So there's kind of both happening. So that's my check-in into the moment. And so now what we normally do in the group is we, if there's more people, right, we'd have a chance to check in. And it might be good. I think maybe let's take some time, and this is what we do in the group. We'll pause after everyone's checked in to take a moment to allow ourselves to reflect on each other's check-in. And not necessarily in a cognitive way, but just in a feeling way. So let's all do that together, me, you, whoever's watching, and just take a moment here just to reflect on our experience of the check-in. And maybe offering for those of you watching, like, what is coming up inside you as you listen to us check in, right? Or what came up for you when we did the meditation. So let's just take a minute just to be with that. Again, it's really kind of like a practice of inner listening. Like, as whatever thoughts or feelings arise, just see what it's like to be in the position of listening to it. To be the listener of the voice inside rather than be the speaker. And just play with that a little bit as you listen to what you're experiencing here. Yeah, and in this format, just as you're comfortable to speak for anything that you noticed that came up in relation to my check-in or me, or being in the context of love, you can do that, and I can as well.
Yeah, the quiet moment here just now is nice. It's like it was an opportunity to have this part. So there was a lot in your check-in that resonated with me about the excitement in the solar plexus and the sort of energy coming up, and like the wanting to like the grinning and the excitement and the like an effervescence. And I also was aware, even before you said it, of like something in me that is remembering that I have permission to let my face completely relax, to just be, that it's not, because I have a part, and I checked in with this during that quiet moment just now, that is like more performance oriented or aware or self-conscious of like, how is this being received? Am I saying things right? Am I saying things clearly? Am I Am I, it's a little more judgmental and perfectionistic. And so the just even thinking about like in normal life, when I go out and I interact with people outside of sort of the authentic communication norms, I have a part that comes forward that just wants to express with my face that I am a friendly person who is listening carefully and very aware and attentive, and doesn't wants to help people feel safe and seen. And and I was remembering in a particular authentic communication group that we had, one of the group members, this was maybe a year ago, there was a point in the group where something happened and I had this big smile come across my face. And this person said, I haven't seen your smile all day. And it was like this moment of both a little bit sad, but also like, this is the freedom and the range that I have with authentic communication, to be able to like not feel like I have to be a certain way in a certain circumstance for something outside of me, but rather I can really be with others from inside of me. So I had another response to something you said, but I'll just pause there in case, because it's kind of going in a different direction. But yeah, can.
Yeah, I was resonating with you when you were talking about that, because as you were saying, like, yeah, I often have this part or energy of like, I'm going to smile, and and I was kind of doing that as you were doing that. I was like, oh, I think I'm in that part like that right now. I'm like, oh, I'm here listening and smiling, right? But actually, to be authentic about my moment to like, I was a little bit struggling in the moment to moment, because I think when I noticed that I was like, oh, I'm doing that, I got a little in my head of like, oh, am I in a part right now? I started thinking about that, and then I kind of lost. There was a little section of what you were saying that I lost, like, and so then when you were kind of talking more, I was like, oh crap, I don't know what Jessica. That's supposed to pretend like I'm the supposed to be the communication guy. I'm like I'm supposed to be tracking what you're saying, and so I had this part that was like, we've got to catch up to what Jessica's talking about and really get it. And it's in this moment, it's just like a joy to like, I don't have to do that. That's okay. And then I did get really curious about like, oh, yeah. I was like, what is that the fact that you were pointing that out, I was curious about how that connected to this moment about
Yeah.
the smiling, and I think if I missed something, that was the connecting piece that I was missing. So that's what I think I was experiencing.
Yeah, I mean, even you saying that helps me get a little clearer. Maybe I'll say it a little clearer, is like, even though I'm excited to be here and I'm aware that this is alive, people might be watching now, people might be watching, not might be, but will be. Part of me is like, might be, maybe no one will ever see it. Let's just keep telling ourselves that. So I have that awareness, and it's almost like there's this little bit of struggle going off to the side of like, how do we deal with that? How do we ignore it enough to stay normal and, not let it there's like a little bit of a fear of it coming in. So that's
Hmm.
there. But the truth is that the smiling that I've been doing so far is authentic for me. Like, I am actually excited and effervescent, and um, this is just it's just so cool. I just love this. Like, you said something near the beginning about something like your consciousness communicating and getting to know my consciousness. And then in your check-in, you said like that you were excited to get to know me. And, it's that's exactly how I feel. It's like, who knew that there was a way to go straight in and to have like the inner experience, to be able to communicate with the inner experience. And so, to bring it back to the facial expressions, it's like perfectly okay for me to close my eyes and to touch in and to not smile and to just be with what is. And then, I guess what I'm saying is, out in the world, I might smile because I feel like I have to, or because I should, or because the parts are so strong and the space is so small inside that I don't have another choice. But in the authentic communication space and with you, where I feel really safe, I have a range. I have a much wider range inside of me and how I express it. And so if I got really sad right now and I needed to cry, and maybe I have a part come in that says you shouldn't be doing that, like all of it is welcome. Like the amount of permission. And I was just specifically noticing it in relation to, like, I am authentically fucking smiley right now. Like I'm not doing it for you. I'm not doing it for whoever might be watching. It's just coming out because I'm thrilled to be here. And it's such a cool thing. And I have a part that's like, and it's perfectly okay if in a moment that switches and your face goes flat of affect and you close your eyes and it's all, there's room for all of it.
Yeah. Hmm. That felt that felt really good just listening to you. What I one I think my nervous system kind of relaxed when I was able to just say what I said, which is like, I actually lost you a little bit, and I was thinking, and I got disconnected, and that was okay to say. My nervous system softened, and then hearing you laughing and smiling, and then asking a little bit more about what was going on for you, so I can connect to you. Um, I felt my nervous system really soften. I felt relaxation, and then I was listening to you. It just felt so good in terms of just really getting your value for the space that we're in together, in this type of wow. And that like there's such a relief for you, and like I'm just laughing, like I don't have to worry about, I'm not doing it for anyone else. There's not a part here that feels that need. I can just be authentic because I can be all of myself, and I know that this space between us and, whoever's watching is okay to be ourselves. And that, I don't know, I feel a little like emotional. Like as you were saying it, I started to feel like a tenderness opening up, and it goes from my eyes and touches like my heart and goes like into my stomach. It's like this nerve, like just very low. It wasn't like really strong, but it was like this gentle vibration of emotion as I was hearing it, and I don't have words for it except that there's a felt sense of your aliveness and presence, and my felt sense of connection to it, in that we've been doing this work together. We've been creating this together, right? Like all of us have been kind of like practicing this and discovering it as a unit in a way. And there's a real meaning that was being touched, I think, in that, which yeah, just felt really good.
Yeah. Yeah, as you say that, it's like an energetic feeling sense of the people that I've been in authentic communication group with, additionally to us. I can kind of feel their energies, these different
Right,
people.
right.
That's really neat.
Yeah, yeah. I was experiencing a little of that, like different, actually, because I didn't want to say particular names of people who are not here. But I was, I'm thinking of this person. I'm thinking of this, their faces were coming to me as I was talking about the people who've all co-created this, all different group members, including people who are currently and people who have left over the years.
Mm-hmm.
All of it has come together. So I was feeling that too. That's neat. They were kind of feeling that at the same time there a little bit. Um, I also noted a little part of me that like my little teacher part was like, I'm tracking what the practice is that we're doing, and I'm aware of this curiosity of like, people watching are getting the feel of it, right? You're getting like from some of the things you're saying. I imagine people like, I get a feeling of like all reactions are welcome. You can, we're kind of pausing. We are kind of pausing or shelving, questioning all the social norms of communication, right? That
Mm-hmm.
just pause, go inside, close your eyes, speak to what you're feeling in response. All these things that normally are not acceptable to do. So that, is one thing you're getting. but I think important for me, I guess my teach part wanted to name one of the big aspects is we're responding, we are giving each other content, but we're also speaking to, and first and foremost, like how we're responding kind of emotionally, energetically towards the other first, to make that really clear. So, like, as you're saying, I am feeling more alive, right? Or as you, my emotional response to you right now, is before it was disconnection. I got lost. I felt disconnected. Now it's aliveness and moving towards, right? So it's always tracking that. Where is that moving back and forth? The emotional response, tracking that, naming that, and then allowing for what the content of that might be. I'm excited, and here's my excited thought, but I'm naming my excitement as the emotion, kind of first, right? So I'm kind of noticing that.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's really interesting to hear you tracking that, because I'm just kind of doing it,
Uh-huh.
so there's like and then part of me came in and was like, but are you doing it? What did he just say? And then part of me is like, no, no, you really know how to do this. He's just explaining what it is we're doing, and how weird that is, like the teacher brain that can kind of come in and take the thing apart and describe it, and then the part that just does the thing. And they're very different. But as you were talking, I had this sort of momentary reflection of realizing, and this is something I've been doing lately, where when I realize I am judging myself through another person's actions, or by imagining that they're believing something, but I'm trying to name it. And I realize, like, oh, I have a part that believes that Frank is way better at knowing what he's feeling in his body, and being able
Hmm.
to name that, to go right to it, to the little tremors, or the wet eyes, or the heart opening. And then I had a part that came in right after that that said, it was like a kind of a neutral informational type, and it said, yeah, you do pretty well with the body part, but you got this whole visual thing that happens, and it's pretty cool too. And it was like, both of those count, back off, like, you know what I mean, like, very gently, but like, no, no, you're good. Like, it doesn't, this process doesn't come with only one color on the palette, in the visual way of describing. It's not one note. You know what I mean? Like, there's all kinds of ways to actually experience and describe what that in the moment sub content experience is. And for
Yeah.
me, I think it really does come as a mix of the body sensations, as well as these visuals that just kind of pop in, that for me do a great job of describing. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel joy. Um, I will resist describing what that feels like in my body. There's one. I'm feeling joy and excitement because I really enjoy the way your mind works, and the way you articulate things. So I get such enjoyment out of relating to you in that way. Yeah, and what it does is, and I think part of why I enjoy our relationship so much, because it sparks so much, like, oh yeah, in me, like what you were just saying about how you were. I heard you had, you were kind of working. I know, you tell me if this fits, but this is my perception. There was like a little bit of an inner critic voice that was going on, like, you don't do as well as Frank, maybe comparing, you don't do the body, and then another part like defending you, like, no, but we do imagery really well, and then this how all that came together. So I was tracking all of that. Does that fit for you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And my teaching part can be like, I could teach what I just did. It's like, no, you don't have to do that right now. That's you don't have to teach everything you say. Um,
Great.
thank you though. um, but I, like, as you were saying all that, like, I was like, oh, like, it was just spurring so many points of. It was like you were mapping things out, and I was like, oh, I could say this about that. Like, oh, this is, and what it illuminated for me was the knowing of, like, these streams of perception, meaning one is a bodily sense, like we could be aware of our body, right? But then there is an imagery, like so, like psychic type of mediums know that, like there's clairvoyance and there's audio. You can get information comes through these
Yeah.
streams, hearing, right? So we can hear a little voice in our head. So I might say, I'm hearing a voice in my head say, blah 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 blah, right? So I'm getting my data through the hearing and we might say hearing the parts or hearing aspects of ourselves. Again, the emphasis in that case is on the experience of hearing, not blending with what we're hearing. I'm not the thought. I am the one hearing the thoughts and relaying them. I'm responsible for them, but they are just part of my experience. All right. So I'm sharing my moment to moment experience with you. Here it is, these thoughts. An easier one for me now, because I used to be so disconnected from my body. This is not my natural awareness state, or perhaps it was way, way, way back, and I was disconnected from it through my childhood. I was numb. I was all head, numb from the neck down, had no idea. So it was something that I, really paid attention to, like what's happening in my body, what's happening in my body. So now it just comes very naturally as like I'm having a feeling. It must be happening in my body. Where is it? And it's very easy for me to just say, oh, this is what I'm feeling. And so that's an easy one, I would say, for my system to go to name those body experiences. And then there's the hearing, but then the visual realm is really cool and really powerful. You can just have visions be coming to you like you did in the meditation, which I wanted to come back to because I was really interested in that. So yeah, there's just a felt sense of knowing, right? Like you just know something. You're just getting, I just feel like this is true right now. So I got distracted. I got distracted for a moment. I'm sitting in the back. My wind chimes were flapping in the breeze, but the way it looked when it moved into the window pane, it looked like a person. And I just went, is there a person like sticking his head in my window? And I'm like, no, it's just the wind chime ball. I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, that's good.
Right. First things first. No one's at my back door.
Yes, no one's at my back door. So that was a lot. I'm going to take a pause and let you respond or reflect.
Yeah, I really, two significant things came up while you were talking. Let me see if I can. Yeah, one was I'm like really connected to my body, but the way my brain works is it's also visual. So what I feel in my solar plexus right now is like sort of like a parallelogram. It's yellow it's like a green background with yellow stripes and they're vibrating at a certain, like that's what I would be saying to you, which doesn't actually make any sense. It doesn't even make sense to me. It just is like I have this synesthesia where I can see, but I can also say, my jaw is tight and, but I feel like the way you are in the moment connecting the feeling and the body, I love it. Like, to be clear, when you said I have joy, but I'm not going to describe what it feels like in my body, I was like, oh, I don't want to express that. I think it's great. And I'm just so glad that like I can, through these ways you're talking about, begin to discriminate for myself how much, and it's kind of on a continuum of how much of what's coming out of my mouth is coming from my head space, which is a great space. That's not a judgment. That's just it's a place that things can kind of live in, and it's more content-y and it's more organized and it's more kind of clinical. And then how much of what I'm sharing is like sourced from a non sort of verbal, logical, even though I'm having to translate it into words, like the experience I'm having in my body and my emotional self in a more just pure consciousness kind of way. And so, yeah. And as you were talking, just the other thing I kind of wanted to add about that is I am aware that, and let's see how to name this, that this interaction between us, because we've had the range of interactions, right? We've had interactions where it's just pure information sharing. I'm sharing you information. You're giving me ways of looking at things. It's very intellectual. And then we've had experiences that are like almost pure consciousness, where it's like, I'll say something freaking weird to you, like I just saw a dove burst out of your sternum, and you'll be like, I know, or something like like it's just like we're getting it.
Right.
And right now on that continuum, I feel like I'm more at the head end.
Hmm.
And I realized as you were talking that I have some sadness about that. And it's like trying to kind of give myself the grace to say, this is a little bit scary. It's a little bit enervating. It's like the nervous system isn't totally at ease like it would be if there wasn't this third consciousness, this third set of eyes on us. And just realizing that somehow, I don't fully understand it, but it brings me a little more up into my head.
Mm.
Also, I think, like as you were saying, part of what we're doing here is we are sort of teaching. And so, or you're teaching, we're sort of helping bring people along with us. And still there's some sadness, that 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 I feel a little like I don't have the choice. Like I got to be kind of up here a little bit
Oh,
more.
yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And it was interesting as I was listening to you, I just felt myself getting like more and more, I want to say present. Like what happened first was I noticed how I had become my consciousness had become like I'm sitting in front of a laptop right now, right? So I'm looking at you and me and the camera on the laptop and the microphone here. So it's almost like inside my consciousness I'm in this little box, which is this thing. And as you were talking about the nature of like where you are, I started to like, oh, my consciousness started to expand. And I started to become aware of the periphery, like, oh, the room, oh, this space, oh, like, and then all of a sudden, you and I and the Zoom and the camera were just small objects inside this larger space, right? And you continue to talk. I was tracking with you the whole time, but it was all now coming forth in this larger space. And you were kind of speaking to the level of having a little, trouble being in that more spacious, being a little more heady, a little less bodied, a little less spacious. But I was like, oh, there was this expansion opening. I was still riding totally with you, but I was like riding in this larger field, and there was this great feeling of like welcoming. Like my natural embodied felt sense was like, oh, I know I could feel the space, and I feel the sense of being able to invite into it, right? Like I just naturally like, oh, almost like I'm going to put my arms around you in a way and just not tight, but just kind of like, oh, feel that space around you. I don't know if you could feel, it's almost like, I don't know, like bringing air into the room, right? And that's just like, oh, and then all of a sudden now my body's feeling into the energy in the room. I'm not in my mind as much. I'm more like, oh, I'm aware of the space. I'm aware there's an energy here. And it's kind of malleable. I could feel it. I can move in it. My arms can move. There's an energy moving, right? Oh, and it's really nice. I'm watching you as I'm saying that. I see you kind of like, oh, you're kind of dropping in a little bit, and that's just feeling relaxing to my nervous system.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then even I think there was something about what you're naming about that, like awareness of the other, and there was like, oh yeah, and inviting to whoever is watching, right? And then to whatever aspects in my nervous system that might be running because this is live and people might be watching. Whatever those are, just like inviting them into the space. Like they're welcome to be here too. This
Yeah.
this space is holding all of this. It's holding whoever's watching, whatever they're feeling, whatever they're experiencing in the moment, what you're experiencing. And it just felt really good. I want to just like I'm kind of like staying in the space, like I can feel the space, not getting too lost in the meaning of what we're saying, just kind of
Mm-hmm.
experiencing it,
Right. Yeah.
um, and you're kind of like slowing it down a little bit, um, and noticing now the feeling in my body, which is like a warmth and excitement and curiosity about what's happening in you right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to answer that, but first I'm going to push my door closed
Okay.
because someone has come upstairs, and I'm just going to do that to get myself a little more focused. And that it was nice actually that when that happened, that even that was a part in the space, like it didn't contract. So the space feels to me like it feels much larger, and it's like a feeling of much more compassionate. Of there's a reason I'm in my head. There's
Hmm.
a reason that this is how this is happening. Like as if any judgment that might have been there, or any sense of regret, or or whatever, there's a feeling of course, how this makes total sense. That's exactly how it's meant to be. So you sort of naming and me accepting this sense of invitation into this space, suddenly, yeah, maybe I'm still up in my head, maybe that hasn't, but I'm up in my head in a much larger, compassionate, open, there's nothing wrong. This is happening exactly how it's meant to happen, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's it's interesting. Yeah, what yeah, I would just felt so energetically like, yeah, there's nothing wrong. Like, just wherever you are. I wasn't even, me personally, wasn't even tracking at that point how in your head or not you were, which some is actually, as I'm leading these groups, is something a part of me will track with other people. Um, as a way, it's something because I'm trying to facilitate people to drop into this space, right? But what I'm noticing here in this moment, which feels even more relaxed for me, which is like, I'm not even tracking that for you. Like, I'm hearing you speak to it, I'm trusting you with it, but it doesn't matter to me because I'm just here. I'm not like trying to get you to be any different because you don't need to be, right? So I'm like, um, and so that's a kind of like interesting little learning moment for me, I think, where like I think in the group, because there's just something like I've got this facilitator hat on, that I'm supposed to be doing something which is a little bit, facilitating people to be more in that space, where I'm feeling right now, just by me dropping into the space is all the facilitation that's needed, right? Like I was just dropping in, and that just invited you to be wherever you wanted to be in it, however you wanted to be in it.
That feels so good. Like I had one of those like that sort of warm, fuzzy feeling in my chest of just I guess the way I interpret it was just like this like big amount of like trust and pure acceptance, or like, and it wasn't a thinky thing, it was like a feeling thing. It was
Mm.
like it felt like, and okay, so it felt like you saying to me, like, this is a safe space. Like, I say that to you. You are the facilitator, you are the therapist, these things. And it was like you were saying back to me, I also feel safe with you. Like, whether
Mm.
that's accurate or not, or whether it's the whole story, it felt like um, it's safe when Frank is here with me in this moment. It is safe for him to let that part go,
Yeah.
which just felt nice.
Yeah, that feels really good. That feels totally true. Like, so true that I was like not tracking how safe I feel. But
Mm.
you pointing that out is like, yeah, I just was like, yeah, there's no part of my consciousness being like, do I need to worry, track, you know, do anything with you? I just totally trust. Like, I just feel totally trusting that I can be my authentic self and express it and communicate it. And I totally trust your ability to just play in the space with me with it, right? Um, and that, yeah, that feels really good to me, like, and this, in a way, I kind of walked in with that assumption, in a way, like I wasn't thinking about that, but you pointing out how good that feels to you, right? And how, you know, I mean, I think I have my kind of like teaching part, like maybe healing philosophy. Like I'm just gonna go on a little limb and let that one speak, which is, you know, in the fact that we do have a client practitioner relationship, right? That there is an aspect of me that is tracking how my faith in you or my trust in you as a peer, as a peer with a consciousness who is basically has the same hardware and gear that I have, right? And you have the same issues that I have. We have the same parts, we have the same sense of shame, the same sense of wanting to protect that and open up to that. Like the degree to which I know that you fully have that ability to be in that higher self space, to navigate the space, to co-navigate it with me, even though you know, look to me for guidance into that space in another role. The degree to which I see you and as a peer and fully respect you at that level, right? Like meeting human to human is a degree to which that deepens your healing process and mine at the same time.
Yeah.
Does that, yeah, what comes up for you around that?
I was with you right. Can you say so all of that, and then what was the end part again? I feel like you jumped somewhere and I wasn't quite following.
The degree to which the practitioner, can meet their client at that just complete peer-to-peer level, even though you're holding the role of facilitator, but still in that role meet the other in that peer-to-peer level, is the degree to which the healing is more exponentially
Yes,
given
yes.
for both people, right? For the client, for the person, you, and for the practitioner, right? Because
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. Like, yeah, like I'm feeling like the sense that the tools, because I am a facilitator in other circumstances. I've been a facilitator, you know, I kind of know that hat. And it's like the tools are only here to help bring whoever you're interacting with as close, like as far along as you have ever possibly been. They're not here so that I can be the rescuer and you can be the victim, to put it in sort of blatant terms, or that you can be the client and I can be the therapist. About it's always about empowerment and you know, as you were describing it, like, and this has changed over the years, because how could it not? The number of interactions you and I have had, like we've gotten sideways, and then I realize I'm sideways, and so I bring it up, and we have this experience where I can name it, and it's all okay. And like how at this point, I feel like I'm walking, you know, if we were on a walk, maybe you know, I started out like a couple of miles behind you, and you're like leaving me clues on how to get where you're headed, you know, or there's two of you and one of you is walking with me and one of you is like 2 miles ahead. And now it's more like I'm just kind of like a step behind, like, and I don't want to like toot my own horn, it's not like that. It's more of a feeling sense of like, you're just the one who gets to get hit by the cobwebs, right? You know how you're on a walk in the woods, and the person in front's just got to be like, ah, spiders. You're in that, and I'm just right there behind you, you know.
right.
And it feels like there's just so much trust that's been built up over the years. For me, that's been about like, can I say this? Can I be bothered by this with him? Can I be frustrated or scared or unsure? And can I bring it? And then I bring it, and then, you know, and then and to bring it back to what you were saying, as much as like a therapist client or patient or whatever, like as much as that dynamic can start out as a sort of reflective of a parent child thing, you know, like that's some of the
Mm-hmm.
healing that starts, that it doesn't need to stay that way, and it hasn't stayed that way, and that's just huge for me. If it needed to stay that way, you know, like that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm
Right.
not judging it. It's really raining a lot here. I hope it's not messing up the sound.
Nope. Don't hear anything.
Okay, you can hear me okay. I have a metal roof, so it gets kind of loud. Yeah, I think, and I'm explaining this, but I'm also feeling just an immense amount of gratitude. And as you name that sort of healthy, the reciprocal healing that happens on both ends. And I don't even know if I'm explaining it the way you intended it, but that's kind of how how I've experienced it, both as a facilitator who says to this person who's coming in to learn something and a new experience, it's like, I don't want to be the person in charge. I don't want to be the person who holds the magic. I want to hand you the magic. I want you to feel like I'm a resource, but that you are like finding your own way in this, so that I'm not up on a pedestal any longer than I might need to be.
Yeah.
And that is really healing, super powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting to be authentic and vulnerable. Right. I'll just track some of the experience in the last 30 seconds or minute or two of what you said, which, when the gratitude, you expressed the gratitude, and I kind of just felt that in my body, like this warm energy, like right in the middle of my chest, and an immediate part that wanted to like very minorly deflect it back to you, like it's very very subtle, but there's a practitioner habit of like it's all you, like to like like it's all your growth, da da da, but which is also a denial of you offering a gift, and I actually think it's way more a harder practice and more vulnerable to really accept and just take that gratitude. And so when I had a little moment of that, like, oh, felt it, a little part that wanted to like, oh, this is about you, Justin, and like, no, softening that, really allowing myself to experience that, feeling that, kind of tracking that along with you. And then when you kind of got towards the end, when you were talking about the nature of like not putting someone on the pedestal for longer than they kind of need to be, and it touches a very deep place in me because there is a very young part of me, who very much wants to be put on the pedestal. And that young part of me was, that's the kind of nature of my relationship to my mother, with my mother when I was a kid. She, not to speak about her experience, although I could explain some from her family trauma and experience as to why this was, but there was a lot of experience of her being, like, wow, like being putting me on a pedestal, which is feels great. I mean, it's nice to be like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
you're so smart, you're so this, you're so that. But there was an energy in the dynamic that set up a bit of a feeling of expectation of that for me, and the felt way my system would get to feel seen, like, and the only way for my parts to feel my system to feel seen and valued was to be if I was being seen as this pedestal of like, oh my God, right? And that, and if I'm not seen that way in the past, if I had not been seen that way, then it feels like I'm not being seen at all, right? Which feels very painful. And so then parts of me would work very hard to try to be seen in a way where they were larger than life in some ways, which was really hard. um, and especially in the first half of my life where I was really struggling, in my life. I was depressed and drug addicted, and now in this second half of my life, which just seems to be like exploding with aliveness because of the dedication to this inner work that I've been doing, and my life keeps getting better. But there still is that little part of me that's like, you know, see me, like wants to be on that pedestal, and yet from that place, I don't relate. I'm not connecting to people. I'm not relating to people. This deeper type of facilitation or connection, mutual healing. I need to be. I'm very aware of that, right? So it's really good for me to kind of experience that here. I'm not really feeling like that strong right now, but it felt good for me to name that. Is with just a little bit of a voice in my head when you said that. That was like, but, I, I want to be seen on the pedestal. Can I get the, I want to be on the, use the kind of imagery of the like, the Olympics, when you go on the Olympics and you stand in the thing,
Marquee. Yeah.
right,
They're
right, you're on the
like,
marquee and you get your medal, and he that part, he wants his medal. It doesn't have to be the gold medal, it could be silver,
oh, I want the gold medal. Let's be clear. I,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Well, as you were talking, I felt like, and I'm sure I feel this in other times, but I was really aware of it. It's like this, like sharpening or broadening maybe of focus. Like everything felt really like, felt, I felt more of me tuning in to what you were saying. Like really like,
Mm.
he's telling me something about himself. Maybe because that doesn't happen as often as I'm telling you something about myself. And I don't even know if that has an emotion with it. It just felt like a higher level of like consciousness, of like taking it in, being open to what you were saying, which felt good. And I had a moment, it was sort of a thinky part that was like 2 minutes ago, he said that the healing happens when there's more of a peer-to-peer relationship. And then here's this part that comes forward that is like, but I want to be on the pedestal. And it was like, just another example of like the range that there's no dissonance there. There's no, you can't believe this and this because those are opposites. And it's like, oh no, there's room for all of that.
Right.
And how cool that is that maybe that's one of those things that some people don't, like, I don't know, before IFS, before authentic communication, it was so often that I was like, clearly I want to do this thing. Why am I not doing this thing? And it was because I was like not allowing myself to understand that there was a part of me that was scared of doing this thing. It was like I couldn't understand that both of those could exist at the same time. So anyway, I just appreciated that within minutes of each other, you sort of named, do you notice that, like,
Yes.
here's the healing, peer to peer, the more we can do this, the better it is. And then here's this part that comes forward that's like, but can I stand on the pedestal while we're peer to peer?
Exactly. And what was coming, obviously, I'm just feeling, maybe not obvious, I'm feeling a lot of joy and just connection as you say that, and then like wanting to clarify, right? Like, yeah, and the peer aspect of it is the I am relating to you as the witness and experiencer of that part, right? Like I am not that part. That is a part of me, and he's very young, but that's not me, right? And before we can really start to really clue into that we have these different aspects of ourselves, it's hard to understand that there is a facilitator who's a little bit more older and wiser who understands this peer-to-peer thing, and there's a 10-year-old boy who wants to be validated, right? And I am both of those at the same time, right? Um, but more than those, I am the one that holds and sees all of that, and that's the peer, right? That's the peer, the one who says, "Oh, look at that! I got this little kid on the pedestal." Because you got little kids that are doing your things, and it might be they're looking for that, or it might be they're doing something else. But the you is the aware one, the one who's right, like who's experiencing this, who's becoming aware and knowing, oh, this is what's inside me. That's the me, and that me and that you of you is the same. We are this. That's the interconnection. That's the peer. We are both experiencing what it's like to be human. You in the female body and your experience, mine in my male body and my experience. But we're both like having these emotions and thoughts arise into our consciousness, and we're both working on navigating how do we have a relationship with what is arising, right? And seeing that we are more than just what is arising. That is what is arising, that's the material, but we are more the consciousness in which that arises. And that is the peer. We are both that. We are both holding that space.
Yeah. Yeah, as you were describing that, something in me for just a moment reflected back on like a couple different things we've said along the way where I was like, oh, I could have commented about this. I could have shared this piece about myself. And I was like, this is like a giant choose your own adventure. But it's like you're
Right.
choosing, but then we bring it together, like where we have this interaction because it's not just you talking, it's not just me. We're responding to each other. I'm not naming nearly all the things that are
Right.
responding and happening in me, and all the parts that are coming forward going like, like they got something to say, they got feelings. um and just the fact that the consciousness part is like, it's choosing, it's going like, here, we're going to bring this forth, or maybe some other part comes forward and sometimes and says like, let's talk about this or let's not talk about that. Anyway, I don't know why I wanted to name that. I guess I had a part that was sort of imagining that if I was watching this and this was kind of some new information and a new way of thinking and seeing, that I was watching you and I was watching me, and I might be like, this seems very simple or natural to them. And it's like, it's very busy inside here. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many like when the thing you said about deflecting the gratitude, I had a very similar experience earlier in the conversation when you said something about like, I'm excited to get to know Jess. Like, and I was like, I felt like the little girl inside of me, like hide behind my leg and peek around, like, he can't see me. It's too much. But I never mentioned that because we went on to other things, or other things felt like they rose up to the top. Um, and I'm sure that if I were watching this, that I'd be like, why didn't they talk about that piece? That was the thing that triggered me, or that was the thing that really stirred me up. And they just breezed on by that bit, you know? It's just so rich, I
Yeah.
think, so rich.
Yeah. And I've been so alive in the conversation between you and I, and all the consciousness that's coming on, and like I really appreciate you bringing awareness of the watcher, whoever that watcher is, and what they're experiencing. I had a little part that felt a little bad, a little bit of like um, guilt, shame, very small, maybe like a 1 out of 10, but a little pang of like, oh, I forgot them, forgot who's watching, and um, and then there was a voice in me that was like, oh yeah, this is part of my work, like this is part of my continued awakening awareness, which is my there is this dawning that's happening for me, which is I've been on this path, I've been doing this. I know my value of it in terms of like with my individual clients and the groups. Like I get that value all the time. I'm getting that feedback like this is valuable, and I get it in my body.
Mm.
But as I'm beginning to open up into a relationship with the culture at large, why we're doing this live stream, right? I am opening up to this new relationship. You're invited into it, right? So you've taken that step on the journey too. In that relationship with that person, I don't quite yet have that felt sense of what my value is. I don't quite have, and it brings up younger parts of me that are like, you know, are people gonna like me? Are they gonna understand what I'm doing or whatever? And in response to that, there are some other parts that are like, well, you know, maybe they just don't understand because you're so over here, you know, you're so advanced. Most people are not gonna, blah blah blah. All that covering up my kind of insecurity. Um,
Uh,
and I mean, and I don't mean to say that about myself in a derogatory way. That could be that's an easy that I think that part wants to do that. That's a kind of what would you call like I don't know, like a self derogatory thing is an easy way to kind of be like, oh listen, I know I'm being whatever, but it could also be a little disrespectful to my own parts that are actually really trying to protect me and my vulnerability, which I really appreciate and is really important. Um, so this is anyway to get back to the point. I have a little internal parts connection there, which felt good,
mm-hmm.
and I can feel myself returning back to the content level. But while I did that, I would like to share, like I really, while I was slowing down, I was really connecting in my heart to those aspects of myself. I could really feel the younger, kind of vulnerable one. I could feel like a, teenager protector that's just like, and I really felt a sense of like internal energetic acknowledgement of them happening. Like, yeah, I see you guys there and I appreciate you. And I'm not going to, you know, let the part that was being a little derogatory towards them or self-effacing, I guess that's the word, self-deprecating, let's put it that way, that part that learned to be self-deprecating in relation to others about who I am, as a way to kind of smooth the relationship, and really touch into that, all that with some awareness and care, and then kind of come back to the point, which I hope I can remember. No, I can't. I did remember it about 30 seconds ago until I really slowed down, which is okay. Sometimes that's the for me, the slowing down process and being in the moment. Sometimes I lose track of the like point, and that's okay. Actually, I think it's more important to be present and attuned than to get points across. And I'm sure it'll come back. So I'll just pause
Yeah.
and let you
Well, and yeah, do
kind
you
of,
mind if I respond? And
please.
maybe I'm on a swivel chair, by the way, which is
Me too.
very exciting. Um, so I felt so good when you said the thing at the beginning, just now, we were saying you really understand the value of what this is for your clients. Like I could feel that you really get it, and I felt so happy for you. I just felt so much joy. There was lots of pocket confetti. It was like, um, and then when you shifted into talking about this new sort of adventure with this unknown audience, I just was like, wow, just feeling, even being maybe before you named it, feeling into the vulnerability of not knowing, of not necessarily getting that personal impact. Like we're not going to be able to personally talk to every person who watches this and say like, what was this experience? What touched you? What confused you? What upset you? And, like, I mean, hopefully, I hope you'll get some of that sort of feedback. I don't know. I felt the vulnerability of it. And I
Yeah.
appreciated that you took the time with your parts to be with them, to hear from them, to kind of be with those, just that stuff that happens within us when the vulnerability rises up, and there's the defense, and then there's the, maybe it's like, oh, it's no big deal, like, or it doesn't matter. Like that's one of my sort of things that tries to like minimize. And yeah, so I was just feeling it along with you, and appreciative.
Yeah. Um, that feels good. One point of content that
Thunder.
so the thunder on your side, which I didn't hear here. Oh, now I'm hearing it a little bit. Triggered poor Mr. Shoes. Um, my dog, Mr. Shoes. Love Mr. Shoes. Mr. Shoes does not love thunder, so we'll probably be hearing from him in the background for a little while. But what you just said opened up about the audience and responding. One of the things, just in my nascent journeying around social media, sharing these, doing videos, sharing them, one of the things I've learned or started to enjoy, especially on the YouTube channel, is like people will leave very thoughtful responses of what it was like for them to watch the videos, because their videos are so experiential. They're not really just like, oh, let me give you some content. I mean, they're an experience. We're having a very interesting and deep experience for both of us here in the moment. And so I love, one of the things I've really learned to love is like, once in a while I just get a comment and someone's just like, I had this experience while I watched this video that I did 4 months ago or something. And it just brings up like all this curiosity. I'm like, who is this human being? Where do they live? What was it like for them to watch the video? I just get like, that's awesome. And it has nothing to do with the parts that want to be on a pedestal or like all
Mm-hmm.
that, which I can talk more detail about that, what comes up for me, but it's just this pure sense of joyful connection. That is, I haven't yet found it so much in the social media realm, but when that happens, that is like really meaningful to me. So to that end, anyone watching this, I would really love to hear, like Jessica said, like your authentic response to this in a comment either on the Facebook or on the YouTube channel, which is Living Therapy. If you're watching this on Facebook, the YouTube channel is called Living Therapy. If you search for that, you'll find it. If and there's more videos there. If you leave a comment, I will respond. I will respond to it because I love to hear those reactions, and I love to have the opportunity to have a little bit of authentic communication, even with the people who respond. Like, I usually will say what it makes me feel like to receive a comment because it feels good. So I practice that authentic communication, even in like, I'm very excited by your comment. I think somebody left a comment on my YouTube yesterday, which was totally unexpected. And I was just so excited. So I just said, I'm really excited. And they said back, I'm excited that you're excited. So it's little things like that like, oh, that's a play space for me to explore. So I'd really love to hear from anyone. And of course, Jessica, you're welcome, as people comment on the videos, either on the YouTube or the Facebook, to respond authentically with whoever comments too, if that feels good to you.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. That means I actually have to get on Facebook and YouTube. Um, but I'm willing to, because I am really curious. Just now when the thunder hit, I just, for the first time, I looked at what time it was, and I was like, an hour and a half, no one's still watching this. And it was a little bit sad. Like it was like this, it was like one of those vulnerability, self-deprecating, like, oh no, like this is not to others what it is to you. And of course it isn't, but it may be something else entirely. And then another little voice popped in that was like, but you're having a good time. So who cares?
That's right.
Like, this is cool.
Yeah. To that end, let's check in and just see where how your parts are feeling. Maybe we could take a little moment to reflect on this authentic communication session and what came up. And so everyone can kind of take a pause right now if you want. Just allow some time just to kind of breathe into this experience here today. Again, just shifting into that place of listening to what's arising. So yeah, do you want to speak for what there? You want me to speak for anything? What
You go ahead if you want. Yeah.
Mine, I don't have a lot of thoughts. Mine is just like a felt energy inside of, awareness of my poor dog. I feel sorry for him. And a felt sense of like a real fullness, and a very like tangible sense of excitement for the future. Like it wasn't going too much into the thoughts, but like a little bit of like, a little bit of future, like, oh, this is great. I want to do more of this. This is good. And I wonder how this will go out into the world, or what connections, in whatever little ways. So there was a little bit of like future forward thinking and excitement around that. The fullness, the emotional kind of like satisfied feeling is like around the sense of connection with you. Really feeling, what I'll say is like a feeling of depth into the peerness of our connection. Like this feels like there was like I already had a felt sense of that, and an intellectual sense of that, but this just felt like, you know, an hour and a half of just like ground, like playing in it and exploring in it and just feeling so really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I very, very reflective of my check-in, which is feeling a lot of like warm, buzzing energy of just like, and your word of fullness really fits. I feel energized. I feel joyful. I feel full of like creativity, and then there was a little bit of like, do we get to do this again? Like next play date, like not needing to know, but just going like, oh, just excitement for that, and very much felt like, yeah, like we met on each of our own, like our ideal playground, and we were swinging on the swings, and we were building sandcastles, like not in a childlike way, but in the way of it being joyful um, and safe and full of, just loving curiosity, and so just all kinds of, yeah, good feelings. And there was a little reflecting on like, and I think I'm gonna try and take some time with this for myself, that in the past, if I were to do something like this, I would have been real like kind of gorked out in my head ahead of time. I would have been like, oh my God, here it comes. I'm sweating, I'm shaking. Oh my, and I didn't have that. I didn't have, I just had a pleasant feeling of excitement. The parts I was afraid that would sort of take over and be super self-conscious, they were here, but they never came and took over. And so I just want to take some time for myself in the rest of today to be like, to be in a place of celebration of, like, I didn't know how I would get through this, and I did get through it, and like easily, really, and just how much work I've done to get there. So feeling really happy with that too.
I am super. That makes me feel really super good to hear. Pocket confetti for you, celebration of confetti. Like, love that. And then, yeah, just to what touched on me was like, you know, I think of authentic communication, but also it's kind of a branch of a larger thing which I think about, which I call authentic living, which is really from this place of it really gets to my kind of Taoist principles of living in an effortless manner, being really fully engaged and in flow, but without efforting, and
Mm-hmm.
by being just so present to what is. And that's what we're doing in the communication. That's the most direct practice of being with what is and being in flow with it. But it's also about not just communication, it's about being in that type of relationship with our whole lives, right? And so that, for me and you, like that's ideal for me. Like I had no anxious parts about doing and preparation and pre-thinking what, because the whole point of this is kind of to not pre-think it and to be in the moment. So what a great, but also knowing that I have a whole wealth of experience and information that I can bring as it arises into the moment. So I'm fully trusting in myself to bring some value. I don't have to prepare for it. I don't have to stress or work. I'm just showing up in full presence, but it's effortless, right? And I wasn't making an effort to do this. Just felt like there was an impulse, like, oh, this would be fun. Do you want to do it? Yeah, let's do it. Okay. All right, I'll do a little. I mean, it took me 20 minutes to just test the technology out. Okay. And then there might be a little part of me later that wants to tweak it and maybe we'll do this or that. But it's like, that's all secondary to the experience, the joyful experience of in being in the moment and trusting what's coming in the moment. And that's the whole living flow, living in that living therapy, living flow space that I'm just so passionate about, or have found. That's what I've really found, to be in this place of like, oh, I'm living in this place of like being in the moment, being alive, and I often say like I do a lot what looks like work, but none of it feels like work. It's all play for me. This is play. If
That's
I
right.
do rap stuff, it's play. If I do my therapy, I'm playing with people. It's play. It doesn't feel like work. But from the outside, you'd be like, wow, Frank's doing a lot. He's doing, but it doesn't feel like doing because I'm only doing what feels natural from within and practicing listening to that and allowing that to come forth, just not resisting it. So anyway, that
Oh, hallelujah. More of that,
more
please.
of that.
Yeah.
And yes, to your answer, actually, can we do more of this? Yeah, and I actually had a little thought, which is so for everyone we are, right? We are in the process of building authentic communication. We might have to change the name. We have to talk about that for technical reasons that other people use it. So I'm like, but
Okay.
this as an organization, we're creating an organization around this so that more people can practice this. And so I'm getting to a space of training facilitators so that they can lead these types of sessions and groups and interactions, not only in a set setting, but also learn how to lead these interactions or be an authentic speaker in your life, in your relationships with your wife and children. How do you, your husband, brothers, sisters, coworkers? How do you be authentic while still moderating or still holding the sense of social decorum, right? These sessions and groups are a practice ground to see what it'd be like to really stretch into it so that we can then take this outside and be more authentic in all our relating and be more ourselves and be more alive, right? So we're building out this organization in the very nascent stages, like literally just beginning, right? There's no structure, there's no nothing. We just have a group of like 15 people, right, that are involved, that are in some way, shape, or form, are in groups and interested in it. And the more people who are interested in it. In that, you and I, Jess, you've become I don't know, a not by title or by role or responsibility, but like my kind of, a person I really rely on to talk with. Shoes.
One of the co-pilots.
Shoes. Come here, buddy. Hold on, I gotta bring Mr.
Yeah.
Shoes into the conversation. Come here, buddy.
Hmm.
Okay, now he wants to go in the other room. He's on high alert for the thunder. Come here, bud. Want to say hi to everyone? This is Mr. Shoes. This is Mr. Shoes.
Hi, buddy.
Yes.
Aw.
Oh, this is the best guy. This is the best guy. I know. I know you don't like the thunder, right? I know. I don't like it either because you don't like it. Stay here for a minute. You going to say hi to everyone? You want to say hi to everyone? Okay. You're a good boy, huh? Yeah. So to that end, you've been kind of like my de facto assistant and like person that I kind of download like what I'm thinking, and you've been helping me, and other people have been helping me too, but just in the kind of like, like helping me think through all the concerns. And then so at the end, I was thinking, oh, what if we did that, here live? What if we kind of did authentic communication while talking about the organization? I don't know, it's a thought, it's like that might be really interesting. One, kind of make the project of creating organization somewhat transparent, like really interesting, like see people try to flail through, like what does it mean to start an organization? What kind of concerns come up and parts come up and thoughts and fears? How do we navigate that? And also like practice us relating around that as well.
Interesting. Yeah. I'd be open to that. Yeah. I had some other ideas too, just like this idea of like entering into the flow state. And it's also thinking about how authentic communication has helped me even when I'm all by myself, how I can talk out loud and sort of talk myself through stuck places when the world contracts. And I can kind of, if I can't go into meditation because maybe I'm too contracted, I can sort of talk out loud about here's this part and here's this part. And that also struck me as, for all those people who are like stuck at home by themselves, like maybe working and not around anybody, and the people who are stuck in their houses with a bunch of people. Anyway, the possibilities are quite limitless. So yeah, I'm open.
Awesome. Well, everyone keep tuned. If you want to be included, I think I'll start keeping a mailing list for anyone who's interested. So just let me know. You could direct message me on Facebook if you want to be included in the email list, so that if any information about the next steps come up. But also just keep tuned to the Living Therapy YouTube channel. These will keep the videos coming also on Facebook too. So I want to thank everyone for spending whatever your time and attention. It's like the most valuable thing in the world, your attention. So I really appreciate it. I really am curious what you got out of it. Please share with Jess or I how you felt, anything you want to share, and any final words, Jess?
No, yeah, a big, big thank you
All
for
right,
all involved.
great.